Live. Hi, everyone. It's been a while. Um, let's make sure I'm coming through, okay? I almost couldn't remember how to do this. It's been so long. There we go. I see myself. I see some eyeballs. Hi. If you can see and hear me, will you do me a favor and like this video to let me know I'm coming through, okay? Um, we just took a pause on our live trainings as we went through the late summer and held our incredible Confident Copy promotion. We do that twice per year. And welcomed in, all of our core cohorts are awesome, but this one feels extra special. So welcomed them in earlier in September, and now here we are getting back into the groove of things, which means these live trainings, which are one of my favorite ways to spend time with y'all. And today we are talking, thank you, Gail, for your good news. Today we're talking about the hot topic. Is there a hotter topic than AI? I think not. So we're talking today about the 5 easy ways you can get found on on AI tools and how to start doing that in ways that are accessible. Because the last thing that I want you to be doing right now is feeling like you have to learn an entirely new language. You came to private practice wanting to do therapy. And then you had to do marketing and you learned about SEO. And I don't want AEO, answer engine optimization, to feel like this other massive, overwhelming, daunting thing. Okay. And so my hope here is that we break that down a little bit, but that you also walk away with some really tangible things you can actually start doing on your website. So that's what we're talking about today. If you're joining me live, thank you first and foremost for liking this video. And second, tell me where you're joining from. Say hello in the chat. And please know that the beauty of you being here live is you get to ask questions live. So I will go through the teaching portion of my training. And then if there are any questions, I will happily answer those before ending our time here together. Because, like I said, I know that this feels like a hot topic and also something that's rather daunting. I want you to get inquiries from people saying, I found you on ChatGPT or I found you on Perplexity. That's what I want. And I'm seeing that happen. And so I really want to equip you with that. All right, we have Marissa from Sacramento, Gail in Sarasota. Hi, Gail. Jennifer, Southern California. Hi, Jennifer. Jessica from the Connecticut shoreline, beautiful up there. So happy you guys are here. All right. If you are a listener of our marketing therapy podcast, which is the podcast we launched earlier this summer, it has been one of the most fun projects I've ever done. I did do an episode on answer engine optimization there and talked more in depth in that episode about how AEO and SEO are related. And I want to touch on that here before we get into our tips for today. So when it comes to AEO and SEO, the really helpful sort of metaphor you can keep in mind is that SEO is like a library catalog, okay? So SEO is making sure your website is listed and organized and in the catalog, okay? So it's doing all of the things to be listed on the shelf, to be available on the shelf. Now, of course, there are things you can do to increase the likelihood that your book is pulled from the shelf, right? Absolutely. And so SEO, there's a huge part of the optimization, but stay with me on this library metaphor. SEO is like the catalog, making sure that you're actually on the shelf. AEO is like a librarian. AEO is going and pulling your book off the shelf and recommending it in an answer. Okay, so these are not two entirely different systems. SEO and AEO are very, very, very closely tied because you know where AI is pulling its information from the internet, right? From things that are already ranking well on SEO. We actually have some data that shows us that ChatGPT might be pulling directly from Google. Okay, so these are related. And I share that because if you have been spending any amount of time trying to be well optimized for SEO, you have been inherently also optimizing for AEO. Hallelujah. You're killing two birds with one stone here, okay? So this should be very, very encouraging for you. Your book in this metaphor is your website. It means we need a clear title and we need a good description. We need to be specific in order to get chosen. But this should be encouraging in that these are not distinct from one another. Now, what's really important to understand here is that AEO is still kind of a mystery. We don't have well-documented algorithms, right? Or ranking factors. SEO, while there are still elements of SEO that are kind of mysterious and that we don't know everything about, SEO is a pretty well understood system. We know what goes into it. AEO is kind of like, this seems to work, this seems to work. And so, what I'm sharing with you here and what you'll hear about AEO right now is, put nicely, everyone's best guess, right? It's what we're noticing, it's trends. And so, because of that, we do expect this to evolve. AI will inherently get more intelligent. That is what it does. But right now, we're in this really interesting time where we get to benefit from just trying things and seeing what works. Okay. One other thing I'll share with you that's interesting about AEO versus SEO is that conversion rates. So someone actually deciding to proceed with someone is higher for AI sourced referrals than SEO sourced referrals. Now, I don't have data for that specific to the therapy industry. There's just not enough data to know. But across industries, people are more likely to proceed with you if they find you on AI versus SEO. Pretty interesting, right? And a pretty compelling case for why you want to give this some attention. So that's my little spiel on AEO and SEO. If you have been optimizing for SEO, good news. You're also optimizing for AI. And that's one of the reasons so many of our clients and students are getting found on ChatGPT despite never having done anything specific for ChatGPT or for Perplexity. They're just doing what they were told to do, or that what we did for them, and that is leading to their ability to rank. So I want to offer that encouragement here. Alrighty, let's get into it. 5 easy fixes, right? That's our goal here. 5 easy tips to optimize your website for AI that I want to give you today. First, be very, very mindful of formatting your copy. This is something we talk about a lot in Confident Copy. I actually just reviewed a specialty page for a clinician in the program in our group call today, and he wrote a specialty page on parenting. And one of the elements he asked for feedback on was, how scannable is my copy? It's something we've always talked about in the program because you can have incredible content on your website, authoritative, client-friendly, inviting, all the things. But if it is laid out like a dissertation, just paragraph, long paragraph after long paragraph, you're going to lose people, right? Because we need to keep their attention moving down the page. If we layer in SEO on top of that, SEO are the little Google bots are reading headlines and they're looking for information. In the age of AI, the same thing is true. And so we need to be really thoughtful about the formatting of your copy. We're talking short and succinct sentence structure, shorter paragraphs, bullets, bulleted content, bolded content. AI tools, take that into account too when they are consuming what it is that you have written. So we need to be thoughtful, not just about what you're saying, but how it's laid out. Our templates are a wonderful place to, if not purchase them explicitly, at least we'll get some inspiration. Go pull up one of our template demo sites. Look at how we have varied the layout of that copy so that your attention is kept throughout the page. Because guess what? That's actually also helpful for AI. Okay, so be really mindful of formatting your copy. We need to stay away from the big long paragraphs after paragraph after paragraph, and instead break it up, short, succinct sentences and paragraphs, bullets, and then FAQs. FAQs are the name of the game so far when we look at content and AI. So FAQs, frequently asked questions. In our framework that we teach in Confident Copy and that we support our clinicians in, our clients in, there are 2 types of FAQs. There are what we call your general FAQs. So that's, where is your practice located? How long does therapy take? What are your fees? Do you take insurance? They are practice-wide questions, and they're often going to live on an FAQs page or something very similar in kind of that top menu of your website, right? Then there is another FAQ section of your website, and those are called your specialty FAQs. If you have a specialty page all about trauma, we need an FAQ section at the bottom of that page. Now, why do FAQs matter so much for AI? Because what are people putting into AI? Questions. What is AI spitting back? Answers. If AI can draw upon your answers, you're far more likely to be brought up and surfaced in those results, okay? So what's critical here is that we are answering very, very specific and direct questions. AI loves them, okay? So a great example, if your page is about anxiety, There's a lot of questions about anxiety. There's a lot of different types of anxiety. Hopefully, your anxiety page is written to the particular flavor of anxiety you enjoy. And maybe when it comes down to it, you enjoy supporting the people pleasing woman who is, you know, bending over backwards for everyone else, pouring from an empty cup, people pleasing till the cows come home kind of thing. Okay. The specialty page questions, the FAQs on her specialty page should be incredibly specific to that experience. Why do women struggle with people pleasing so much? Not what is anxiety, way too general. There are 1,000,001 answers out there, but instead very specific to who is reading this. Okay. So keeping those FAQs, those specialty FAQs, so specific. We recently actually just wrote one. We presented the copy this week. She works almost exclusively with BIPOC women and has a page on boundaries in relationships. Why do Black women often struggle holding boundaries? Okay, we're getting specific in these specialty FAQs. So not only are you talking about where you're located and what your fees are, but you're also making sure that every single one of these specialty pages are answering some incredibly specific questions related to that specialty. Okay. The other thing I'm going to suggest here in your FAQs is that you keep your answers relatively short. I mean, you could probably talk for 20 minutes about some of these, right? I'm going to encourage you that you keep your answers to like 150 words max. It's not that if you go to 151, you're never going to show up or anything like that. But that is a kind of a helpful benchmark because AI wants to know that you know what you're talking about, but don't belabor it, for too long. So try to be succinct, try to surface the answer quickly. When possible, when you're answering those questions, a good example would be, how do I know if my anxiety is bad enough to go to therapy, maybe? And you talk a little bit about that. You could end that with saying, if you're ready to get some support, click here to reach out. Include some sort of call to action, again, when appropriate in those answers to really strengthen them. So that's our second one is your specialty FAQs. Okay. Make those really, really laser focused. If you already have them on your website, go revisit them. Make sure they're ultra specific and that you're abiding by some of those best practices I mentioned. All right. So the next one is something you've heard from me. I mean, if you've been around here for a while, you're probably, yeah, ad nauseum. Please use language your clients use. Why does that matter for AI? Because what's your client typing into AI? Not, I think I might have an attachment rupture, right? You're saying, I'm really insecure in relationships and I don't know what to do about it. Okay. It is more important than ever that the content on your website is not clinical jargon, is not over your client's head, is not speaking to trauma they don't know they have, but is meeting your client at their point of need and using language that they themselves identify with. Okay. Now, there's a time and a place to exert your expertise, to define attachment wounds, for instance, when relevant. So it's not that you can never do that, but it should always be prefaced with client-friendly content. Okay. We need to make sure that there is nothing intimidating or, again, over your client's head that could be misinterpreted, misunderstood, or create distance between you and the client. We know that AI favors everyday words over jargon. And guess what? So do your clients. So if you have been writing copy and thinking about your marketing in a client-friendly way, good news. You've already been optimizing for AI. Isn't that cool? So much of what you've already been doing, if you've been following, the Walker Strategy Co. and some of my colleagues, like you're getting a lot of this guidance already. So I hope that's encouraging for you. Another thing I suggest for you as it relates to the content of your website, make sure that those headings are clear and descriptive. Okay. When possible, it's not going to be every single heading on your website, but when possible, a headline should provide meaningful information, even when it's extracted on its own. Because when bots, whether it's SEO or AI, read a website, they read headlines first. So if you're putting something into H2, a heading 2, for instance, could that statement be pulled out and stand on its own? I help moms overcome burnout is better than like feel better faster. There's a time and a place to make your headline feel better faster. But you can see the difference there. Whereas the first one, I help moms, recover from burnout. That means something on its own. Whereas feel better faster, I need to know what else comes after that in order to understand it. So again, not every single headline on your website is going to pass that test, but something to keep in mind. as you're kind of crafting the journey on your website there. Okay. All right. So be mindful of formatting, enhance, improve, makes more specific your specialty page FAQs. Use client language in your content. Those are the first three. Okay. Um, Paul, a good question I see from you. For the FAQ on specialty pages, do we actually use a heading called FAQ? Yeah, absolutely. When we create these for clients, or if you check out our templates, we usually have a section where we kind of invite action. There's a button and usually a headline. And then beneath that, frequently asked questions about anxiety therapy, about couples therapy, about, EMDR. And then underneath that will be those FAQs. Yeah. Marissa, good question. For FAQ on specialty page, are accordions readable by bots? It's a good question, Marissa, and you'll get different guidance on this. We use accordions is the language that Squarespace uses, although Wix and WordPress might have different terminology for it, but it's essentially where you click on something and then the content expands, right? So it's hidden initially, but then it expands. We know, and as AI isn't super well documented, we don't have all the documentation. We know that AI, or I'm sorry, that Google can read that. We have heard from like Google leadership that content is readable. What there is debate about is whether what's included in the expandable part is deprioritized because of the display. So that's where you'll get some not conflict, but I cannot think of the term, conflicting, advice on that. So I'm confident that it's read. We use accordions a lot when we design our templates and our sites for clients and things like that. And not once have we seen it be detrimental to them. Those people are still getting, I can think of a client right now. She got a client for infertility in the Bay Area through ChatGPT, accordions in multiple places on her site. So yes, but is there potential that it could be deprioritized? It is. Here's the balance. Here's the test that I use there. If I made all of those answers displayed on the page, would I be inhibiting some of my client experience and the scannability of the site and the experience on it in the name of maybe improving the AEO or SEO? To me, yes. If you have 5 FAQs and each one of those has a 150-word answer, that's a lot to scroll through. So I think we have to weigh user experience over potential SEO impact. And to me, user experience wins out there. One thing I haven't talked about here, and I won't go down this rabbit hole, but SEO is highly technical on some, while SEO cares about content, there's also a lot of technical elements of SEO, making sure your site loads quickly, it performs well on mobile, things like that. All of those things still matter to AI as well, because AI is going to pull websites that rank well. But AI does lean more heavily on content than it does on some of those technical pieces. And so TLDR, I would keep using accordions. So good questions. All right, let's get to our last 2 suggestions here. So the next one, when appropriate, display your credibility and your expertise. So in the same way that Google looks for authority, Google wants to know that you actually know what you're talking about. And this emphasis on authority and expertise has only increased in past years, especially in industries like therapy, because you're providing a health service. So your standards you have to meet are even higher. Okay. So we have always been looking for authority signals, and Google cares about that. And so I want to make sure your licensure, your education, your trainings are shown on your website. This is true for AI as well. So when possible, include authority signals. I was just reviewing, again, in this week's Competent Copy call, an about page for a clinician in Philadelphia, and she has, I believe, over 15 years of experience in eating disorder recovery in particular, and it made sense in the context of her about page to share that. So when possible, without there's an overdoing it. There's every single paragraph or section talking about me and how much experience I have, but when appropriate, highlight your authority, highlight your credentials, your years of experience, your licensure, to again give off those signals. Make sure that you are explaining your approach in that plain human language, but also still explaining your approach. So when you write, for instance, a specialty page with us, there's going to be a solution block in every single specialty page. And in that solution block, we are talking about how does this work? If it's a couples page, what does working with couples look like? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have an individual session. I use the Gottman method. That means you're going to get lots of tangible skills. Or I use RLT. RLT means we look at these things. So we need to make sure that we're talking about your approach again, non-clinical, but emphasizing and giving those signals that I do know what I'm talking about, and here's why. So rather than just popping your resume onto your website, right? Give some warm, appropriate, in context signals about what it is that you do. One other place you can include this, when appropriate, I have to keep saying that, are your FAQs of your specialty page. So if I was writing an eating disorder, a specialty page for that clinician, she works with LGBTQ folks in particular. It could be, why do LGBTQ folks struggle with eating disorders differently, than the average population or something? And maybe she gives a little information about that. I specialize in the nuance of what it means, or kind of the intersection, I think is the language she uses, between eating disorders and identity, and have 10 years of experience working with clients in this way. That'd be a great way to give an authority signal within the context of her answer. Can you see what I mean? So again, we're not belaboring it. I don't want to see your years of experience absolutely everywhere, because it is not the Anna show. It is not the whatever show. But it is still a good idea to highlight when you know what you're talking about, because you do, okay? And AI will be looking for that too. Alrighty, last one is an easy one. Don't sleep on your page slugs. Anna, what the heck is a page slug? A page slug is what comes after the slash in your website address. So walkerstrategyco.com/confident-copy slash confident-copy is the page slug. Google and AI read your page slugs. And they read those to, especially models like ChatGPT, scan those slugs to determine relevance. Okay. So when you're writing your page slugs in Confident Copy, or if we're writing them for a client, we are going to include the name of the service and the location. So slash eating-disorder-therapy-Philadelphia. Okay. That gives more context than slash specialty-1, or even slash eating-disorders. That doesn't tell me nearly as much as eating disorders therapy Philadelphia. Okay. So the more specific and query aligned your slug can be, the more likely it is to be cited. And I told you the name of this training was Easy Tips. Your slugs are a very, very easy thing to update. So make sure that your URLs really reflect what both your potential clients and AI, could be searching for. Make sure that they're descriptive. A really easy switch you can make, and optimizes not just for AEO, but again, for SEO as well. One thing to know, if you update your page slugs, you need to, now I'm going to get into something more complex. You need to tell Google. So if right now, maybe I need to point you guys to a resource on this, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But right now, if you have, therapy.com/eating-disorders, and then you want to update that to eating disorders therapy Philadelphia, you need to tell Google those are the same thing. Wait, Google, wait. I know you think my eating disorders page lives at eating-disorders, but it's at this now. There's a really easy way to do that, especially if you're a Squarespace user. It's called a URL mapping. And you know what? Because I went down this rabbit hole, I made my bed, I'm going to lie in it. I will link to a tutorial on this for you guys in the comments. So if you go down and you make these changes, I want to make sure you're well equipped on the other side. But don't sleep on your page slugs. That's your last one. So let's revisit our easy tips. And then if you guys have additional questions, please do let me know. So the first one, be very, very mindful of formatting in your copy. Okay. We are not dissertation style, big, long paragraphs. Short, succinct sentences and paragraphs, bullets, FAQs, headlines, answering questions directly and specifically in your specialty pages, those FAQs, using client language, not clinical jargon, in all of your content, showing credibility and expertise, giving those authority signals when appropriate and when in context, and don't sleep on your page slugs. Those are my suggestions to you. Maybe you're sitting here and you're like, I'm doing all those things. Awesome. I would encourage you to go look at your your website analytics and see if right now you have any traffic coming from AI. I actually went and looked at Walker Strategy Codes just to because I was curious before this training, and we're getting a handful of folks from Perplexity and ChatGPT, not a ton, but I haven't done anything for this. We're not even super well SEO optimized, but that's a whole other story. Um, what do they say about the shoemakers kids like have no shoes kind of thing? Anyway, I would be curious to know if anyone or if people are finding you that way. And keep in mind that this is growing and evolving. We are in the infancy of this. And so we're going to get more information about what really works and what doesn't. For now, these are all things that you can easily implement that we know are translating. And I'm actually seeing happen for clinicians. So, right, this was a lot of fun. Let's see. Hi, Chris. I'm happy you're here. Are the best practices that dictate a max amount of FAQs on specialty pages? I'm consuming your test to see if it's moving the client along the client journey would be at least partially an answer here. Yeah. Oh, assuming your test to see if it's moving the client. Yes. So FAQs, the way that we have always kind of chosen FAQs on the bottom of the specialty page is, are we providing necessary psychoed? Are we helping the client realize that they're a better fit for me? And are we inviting them into action? That's what Chris is referring to as far as like moving along the client journey. I mean, I could land on the bottom of an FAQ, a specialty page, and if there's 50 FAQs, like I'm not going to read any of them, right? Could be getting a little excessive. I don't have like a sweet spot, and I haven't seen anything in AEO strategy in particular that points us to like, well, don't do too much. For user experience, probably 6 to 8 max. And part of that does matter as far as how it's laid out on the site. Again, we have the beauty of accordions here where it still can be pretty concise as far as that user experience goes. I mean, if you have more than that, like I said, I don't have any evidence that it'll be detrimental or beneficial, but I would keep it to 6 to 8. But yeah, I think if you do more, it's not the end of the world. So it's a good question. Alrighty. So to remind you guys, SEO and AEO, super, super, super linked. This is not some brand new thing you need to learn. Both rely on clarity, both rely on trust. And the way that I talked about, I think in my marketing therapy episode is that I view AEO as SEO's like chatty older brother or cousin. They're still related. They just like to talk a little bit more, and they're going to rely more on content, more on that client friendliness, more on specificity. The one thing I didn't mention earlier is that the reason I'm so excited about AEO for clinicians is because it's not quite, at least yet, as how long you've been in the game, how many blog posts you have, how much domain authority you have. Like SEO is like it's kind of a game, right? About getting to the top of those rankings. I think that AEO presents a cool opportunity for the clinicians who are more niched or newer to still be surfaced in really, really relevant conversations, even if they haven't been in the game the longest. So in the age where we are seeing specificity matter more than ever when it comes to what clients are looking for, who they're deciding to work with, I think specificity is also cool and honored and celebrated almost by AI as well. So it to me is really exciting for clinicians who perhaps are newer or more niched, because they might not be playing the big SEO game, but they still have a really significant chance in ranking and being surfaced in AI tools. So, all right, the more clear, the more client friendly, the more specific your website is, the more friendly it likely is for AI. Okay, and even one fix from today, one easy tip. Maybe it takes you, take you 10 minutes to change your page slugs, might take a little bit longer to write some FAQs, but the fixes you make here, they can move you forward. So continue to keep an eye on it. There aren't really great tools to know like how you're ranking because this is so wide reaching, and I imagine they'll be developed eventually. But until then, keep an eye on it. I've mentioned Confident Copy here if you're looking for help in creating the website that is client friendly, that is specific, that does have all of this baked in. We welcomed in a new group of students earlier this month, but Confident Copy is open year round. You can jump in anytime, walkerstrategyco.com/confident-copy. And then we also have our done for you services. If you're like, I don't want to do any of this, let us do it. walkerstrategyco.com/services. There's nothing more fun than that. Jennifer, I know you're one of our past clients and one of my favorite group practice sites we've ever done. So anyway, thanks for being here today. It is so glad, it's so good to be back in this seat. Let me do one more check for comments because they love to not show them to me. All right, I think I got them all. If for whatever reason I missed, I'll come back into it. Oh, Gail, thank you. She said these trainings and podcasts are so helpful. Amazing. Oh, I appreciate you, Gail. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you here soon.